Hey everyone, and welcome to another Kanoa Reviews, where we review games both new and old on all platforms. If you like the content that I make, then please subscribe to the channel and click the notification bell so you never miss a review when it comes out. Today we talk about the game Little Nightmares. With the release of Little Nightmares 2 around the corner, I wanted to take another look at this small indie game that made quite the impression when it was originally released. Little Nightmares is a semi-2D puzzle platformer with horror and adventure elements interwoven. With the semi-2D, I refer to the fact that you are mainly always walking from left to right or vice versa, but can also walk a little bit to the back and the forefront of the areas you're at. When it comes to the dark tone and feel of the gameplay, many often make the comparison between the game Inside and this, and though there are quite a few differences, I can still understand why. Both games feature a small child you need to guide through all manner of dangerous and life-threatening puzzles that utilize the environment. Hide behind some things to avoid getting spotted, or time a jump just right as objects are moved because of the physics engine. Both games also do not have any dialogue, nor tutorials, and are very intuitive when it comes to its control scheme and puzzle solving. I actually think Inside is a masterpiece, but Little Nightmares differs enough to where it can stand on both 2 feet and share the spotlight with Inside. For one, the art style in Little Nightmares is way more expressive and vibrant, and the fact that you have some 3D movement within that 2-dimensional space makes it to where it can pull off gameplay and puzzles that Inside cannot. In Little Nightmares, you wake up as cute character 6, a comically small child with a bright yellow raincoat. You wake up in the depths of the Maw, a giant ship from which you have to escape. There's no dialogue, nor explanations whatsoever, but through clever hints and Easter eggs in the environment, you can actually understand a bit more about what's going on in general with the setting and the story behind the enemies you will face. Control-wise, it's very easy to pick up and play. You can run, jump, and with the right trigger you can grab whatever object you see, whether it's something loose like a ball on the ground, or the doorknob of a door to progress further. With the other trigger, you can sneak and duck to get through tight areas quietly, and lastly there's a button to light a small match for illumination. The great thing about the game is that the pacing is absolutely flawless. It teaches you everything just right without the need for a text-based tutorial. You soon will get to a small hole you cannot walk towards. So you haven't found out that you can sneak or duck yet. You will try some of the buttons you haven't used and find out that you can indeed duck to progress. The game then teaches you that you can grab a hold of doorknobs to open doors, and then soon after, you find a doorknob that is too high to reach. But by that time, you have already learned to grab and jump on things, and in that very same room there's also a chair. So it's intuitive to the point where it makes sense to grab the chair and move it towards the door and jump on it to reach the doorknob. The fact that it all becomes so clear without the need of explaining is what makes the game so good. There's no hand-holding, but all the puzzles make sense. At a certain moment, you will be chased by an enemy who is blind, and so all I can do is hear you. If you walk over the wooden boards, it will creak and he will know where you're at. But there's carpet spread around the rooms, and it's clear enough to understand that you are expected to walk over the carpeted areas. In my opinion, it's because most of the puzzles are physics-based, and thus the solution, or what you need to do, is always logical, despite the game looking so cartoony. There have been other cartoony games out there where the puzzles simply don't make any sense or only in the context of a cartoony world, but that's not the case here. As you get more familiar with 6's movement and what you can do, you start to indeed face some dangers in the form of enemies. Here too, the build-up is perfect. You first start encountering these weird black blood-sucking goo enemies that fall from the ceiling and are pretty slow. They don't pose much of a threat, but definitely teach you that there are dangers out there. Not too long after, you will face your first real enemy encounter in the form of the blind man with the hat and with the ridiculously long arms. And seeing how we made a comment about his really unique look, let's use this moment to talk about the game's art style. It's honestly one of the main drawing points to love this game so much because of its unique aesthetic. Not only the characters, but the environment too is very twisted with absurd proportions. Shapes that are usually straight are bended and curved for no reason, kinda creating a dark Dr. Seuss look or something that would find in a Tim Burton creation. The early Tim Burton, from when he actually cared. Personally, to me, and maybe other Dutch people too, this style actually reminded me of how characters and environments look in a local amusement park called the Efteling. Characters there too look quite scary with big bulging eyes, layers of fat or skin draping over one another, and exaggerated body parts like a long neck or a wide mouth. Yeah, in all honesty, it's very, very scary, and though many of us Dutchies love it, that style already scared the crap out of me when I was little. Because of these weird proportions, the enemies you face definitely appear monstrous despite being actual people. The blind man with the really long arms, the fat cook with its gluttonous mouth open all the time and its skin and fat draping over its eyes, and the masked woman who is tall and thin yet very menacing. Though I would not call the game very scary, it can definitely be categorized in a horror type game since the atmosphere is so creepy. I even got jump scared twice through my playthrough, and the sneaking around and dealing with the monsters is terrifying enough to where it can definitely feel like a horror game. But nothing too extreme, and in a way, this would be a good horror game for beginners. The game is actually very short. You can complete it in around 2 hours. But because of that, the earlier mentioned pacing is so good. There's never any filler, and you are never stuck with the same enemy type for too long. You will maybe spend 30 minutes or so with the man with the long hands, then 30 minutes with the cooks, and final 30 minutes with the guests and the woman. Because the blind man cannot see you, the gameplay that accompanies his encounters is actually not as complex and demanding as some of the later encounters with the cooks. With the blind man, you are expected to walk on carpet, sneak around on wooden ledges and beams, and avoid things from falling that make noise, and finally, turn on objects like a TV to create a distraction so you can actually make some noise and get away with it. This creates again some very thrilling moments where just at the time where he turns off the TV, he hears you making noise and heads your way as you are turning a valve or switch. You are still required to turn it 1 or 2 more times to complete it, knowing that the enemy is coming. This creates such amazing tension, though I will say that the timing of just getting away or just making it is not as tight as in something like Inside. Inside is an absolute master in this, with for example dogs chasing you as you wade through water and you literally just being able to jump away in the nick of time. So once you have dealt with the blind man, you need to deal with the cook, and this is actually a character that can both hear and see you. So the challenge is upped a bit. Now here you are expected to do some stealth work, and the stealth works really well, and it's clear where you can and cannot hide. The camera position is always in such a way that all the hiding spots are clear, and it's also very clear how well they hide you, unlike something like the Medium, where the fixed camera angles did not properly showcase that. The section with the cook is also awesome because you often need to sneak under tables and closets while he's preparing some food in a very gruesome manner by gutting a fish or stripping the flesh from the bone of a goat or other animal. It's cool too because in this section the environmental storytelling is great. You start the section thinking there's only one cook, and to head through a certain door, you are required to grab a key from the cook's bedroom. The game already throws you a hint by you walking through a bathroom that has 2 toilets stuck together, and lo and behold, in the bedroom, another cook is sleeping. His face is slightly different and disfigured, and the painting on the wall suggests that the cooks are twins, or maybe even Siamese twins that were separated. The sneaking and puzzles are incredibly tense here, because they can actually see and hear you, and the more down-to-earth environments also make it to where this section feels so different from anything you've played before. Where you started out down in the underbelly of the mall with dark metal hallways, you are now in familiar-looking living rooms, kitchens, and storage rooms. After you deal with the cooks, you head even higher up the ship as more color is introduced, and in the background, you can see guests walking into the ship. This is actually something that the game does brilliantly, and that is that it introduces the next foes gradually by starting to show them briefly in the background. They do this with the blind man, they do this with the cook, and also with the guests. The guest section is fairly small, but quite spectacular, with all of them looking really grotesque and swollen and hungering to eat poor little Six. This is the part where a lot of chase sequences happen, but that change in pace and a more spectacular approach is very much appreciated after a big focus on slower puzzles. It's also here where something quite disturbing happens, which also even adds more to the charm and uniqueness of the game. You see, throughout playing Little Nightmares, you notice that at certain parts, Six's tummy is rumbling and she's very hungry and desperate for food. She starts out by eating a loaf of bread and shortly after a piece of meat on the ground. But soon she finds a live rat stuck in a mousetrap, and she devours it while it's still alive. What's more is that there are these very cute triangular shaped characters that look like gnomes or something that waddle around the environment. Despite them being friendly and very cute, they can actually startle you as they suddenly quickly skirt around the environment. They are very jittery and very fast, but mean well and even help you by showing you where you can and cannot hide or where to go. At a certain point, one of them offers Six some food, but instead of taking the food, Six by now has gotten a taste for blood and devours the poor little gnome. It's a moment that really comes as a shock and a surprise, because even though it had already been set up that she was growing more and more hungry, the player probably expected her to devour the food in a gruesome way and not actually the person offering it. You finally end with a section where you face off against the masked woman who has broken all the mirrors in her living quarters. Again, great storytelling just by the environment. And end with a very memorable scene of Six unlocking a power where she sucks the life out of anything that gets near her. She walks down this hallway and for the first time, not from left to right, but straight forward, and kills everything in her path, making it seem in a way that Six is even more terrifying than anything you have faced on the ship. And there it ends. I have not played any of the DLC, but I know that the story in those DLC parts do not continue the story, but tell tales that are parallel to Six's adventure. I know she plays a big part in the second game, and is supposed to help you. But knowing about her terrifying powers and hunger, I really wonder how it all will end up. It definitely got me super excited for Little Nightmares 2. I can also really recommend Little Nightmares 1 to anyone who is a lover of adventure, suspense, and puzzle games. It's a unique feeling game with its art style and memorable characters, and it's an experience that will be with you for quite a while. In the end, Little Nightmares gets a 9. It might be a smaller game, but leaves as much of an experience and impression as larger games that got a 9 that are instead 20 or 30 hours. I'm very happy that the game did so well, and cannot wait to head towards this disturbing universe once more and await what nasty surprises lay in store.